The slap echoed through the living room like a gunshot, sharp and final. The sound of Lucy's palm hitting Tessa's cheek cutting through the thick, suffocating silence that had been building for weeks. In that single violent moment everything broke. Trust, love, the illusion that this family could survive the secrets hiding beneath the surface. Lucy was no longer a confused child caught between adults. She was a girl drowning in betrayal. Her eyes burned with a pain far too old for her age as she stared at Tessa, whose head snapped to the side, her breath catching, her hand flying to her stinging face while tears welled up before she could stop them. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Daniel frozen near the doorway, Mariah standing in shock, not even Lucy herself, as her own hand trembled in the air, like she couldn't believe what she had just done. But the damage was already done because that slap wasn't just anger. It was every broken promise Lucy had swallowed, every night she had cried alone wondering why the adults in her life kept choosing lies over her. Every whispered argument she had overheard. Every time she felt like the unwanted complication in someone else's love story. When Lucy finally found her voice, it came out raw and shaking, accusing Tessa of pretending, of smiling in her face while hiding truths that had poisoned her family, of acting like she understood what it meant to protect someone when she had been part of the very secret that destroyed Lucy's sense of safety. Tessa tried to speak, to explain that nothing she did was meant to hurt her. That love sometimes made people stupid and scared and desperate. But Lucy laughed. A broken, hollow sound that sliced deeper than any scream. Because in her mind, love was just another excuse adults used when they failed her. That was when Daniel finally stepped forward, his face pale, his eyes glassy with guilt so heavy it bowed his shoulders, because he knew this moment was his fault too, maybe more than anyone else's. As he reached out to Lucy, she recoiled like she had been burned, forcing him to stop, forcing him to really see her not as his little girl who used to curl up on his chest during movie nights, but as someone standing in the wreckage he had helped create. The room felt too small, the air too thin, the walls pressing in as if Genoa City itself was holding its breath, waiting for what Daniel would do next. He swallowed hard, his voice barely steady as he told Lucy to look at him, just look at him. When she finally did, her eyes were red, wet, and full of a question she was too afraid to ask. That was when Daniel said the 3 words that shattered her completely. 3 simple words that carried the weight of every mistake he'd made. Every moment he chose the wrong path. Every time he convinced himself he was protecting her when in reality he was protecting himself. I failed you. Lucy's face crumpled instantly, as if those words reached inside her and snapped something fragile and essential, because she hadn't wanted to hear that. Hadn't wanted confirmation that the one person she needed to be strong had known he was failing and did it anyway. She shook her head violently, tears spilling down her cheeks as she whispered that he was her dad. That dads weren't supposed to fail. That he was supposed to make things better, not worse. Daniel tried to move closer, but Lucy backed away again, her voice rising, accusing him of choosing adults over her. Secrets over honesty, peace over truth. Every word hit him like a punch to the chest because she was right. Because no matter how good his intentions were, the outcome was a daughter who felt alone and disposable. Tessa, still reeling from the slap, tried again to step in, her voice trembling as she told Lucy she was sorry, that she never wanted to hurt her, that she loved her. But Lucy spun on her with venom in her eyes, screaming that love shouldn't feel like this, that if this was love she didn't want it. Mariah broke down then, sobbing openly, begging Lucy to understand that adults mess up, that they were trying to fix things. But Lucy's laugh came again, bitter and hopeless, because fixing things always seemed to come too late, after the damage was done, after the trust was gone. The room descended into chaos, overlapping voices, broken apologies, and Lucy's sharp cries cutting through it all as she demanded to know why no one ever thought about how she would feel, why she always had to be the strong one, why everyone kept expecting her to understand things she was never supposed to deal with. Daniel dropped to his knees in front of her, pride forgotten, tears streaming freely down his face as he begged her not to shut him out, telling her he would spend the rest of his life making it right if she would just give him the chance. But Lucy's expression hardened in a way that terrified him, because it wasn't anger anymore, it was resignation, the look of someone who had learned not to hope. She whispered that chances were what broke her heart, because every time she believed, every time she trusted, it ended like this. With that, she turned and ran, the sound of her footsteps fading down the hallway like a countdown to something irreversible, leaving behind a room full of adults staring at each other in stunned silence, surrounded by the ruins of their choices. Daniel stayed on his knees long after she was gone, his 3 words echoing in his head over and over again. Asterisk I failed you asterisk, realizing too late that admitting failure didn't heal the wound, it only confirmed it. Somewhere down that hallway, Lucy collapsed against the wall, sliding to the floor as sobs tore out of her chest, because the slap had been the easy part, the anger the only thing keeping her upright. Now all that remained was the crushing realization that the people she loved most were human, flawed, and capable of breaking her heart without meaning to. In that moment a line was drawn, something lost forever, because no matter how hard Daniel tried, no matter how many apologies followed, Lucy would never forget the day her hand struck Tessa's face and her father's 3 words struck her soul, changing all of them in ways Genoa City would feel for a very long time. The next chapter starts after that night, when the house still had the smell of stress and sadness, and the silence was louder than any fighting. Lucy didn't come down for breakfast, didn't answer when Daniel knocked on her bedroom door, and didn't reply to the messages on her phone. Her absence made everyone feel scared again, because it wasn't just that Lucy was upset, it was that she was gone in a way no one could reach. Daniel stood in the hallway, staring at her closed door like it had become a wall he couldn't break through. He kept thinking about the look on her face when he said those 3 words, feeling bad for being so honest and how much it hurt. Downstairs, Tessa sat on the couch with a red mark on her cheek, not from the slap but from remembering it. What hurt more than the slap was the look in Lucy's eyes after, the look of someone who felt betrayed by everyone. Mariah was nearby, caught between anger, guilt, and the fear that the family she tried to protect was slipping away. As the hours passed with no sign of Lucy, fear settled in like a heavy storm cloud. Finally, Daniel made a decision that felt both risky and necessary. If Lucy wouldn't come to him, he would go to her. He drove through Genoa City, checking places she used to go, the park where she used to swing, the cafe where she loved hot chocolate, the school playground where her laughter once filled the air. Each empty place made his fear grow stronger. The truth he didn't want to face was that Lucy had every reason not to trust him anymore. He finally found her sitting on the old dock by the lake, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the water like it held answers she couldn't find. His heart broke again because she looked so small, so alone, and yet so distant, like she had already learned how to live without him. He approached slowly, afraid one wrong word would make her run. When he said her name, she didn't turn or respond, which hurt more than her screaming ever did. Daniel's voice cracked as he told her he wasn't there to explain or ask for forgiveness. He just wanted her to know he wouldn't stop showing up even if she hated him. Lucy finally spoke, telling him that showing up late didn't help, that saying sorry didn't undo what had happened, and that hearing him admit he failed her made her feel like she wasn't worth trying harder for. Daniel sat down beside her, crying as he told her the truth he should have said before. She was the reason he should have been braver, stronger, better. His failure didn't have to do with her worth, but with his fear of losing the people he loved. Lucy scoffed, asking why she was always the one who got lost in everyone else's feelings, always the sacrifice. Daniel had no good answer, and that realization crushed him because loving her wasn't enough if he couldn't protect her. Back at the house, Tessa finally broke down, admitting to Mariah that Lucy's slap felt like punishment she deserved. No matter her intentions, she had been part of a secret that hurt a child. Mariah tried to comfort her, saying love is messy and complicated and sometimes unfair, but she wasn't sure she believed it anymore. Lucy's pain had shown cracks they couldn't ignore, and the fear that Lucy might never forgive them lingered like a threat over their future. As the sun set over the lake, Daniel made a simple promise to Lucy. No more secrets, no more comfort over truth, no more protecting adults by sacrificing his daughter. Lucy listened without looking at him, her expression unreadable. Promises had failed her the most. When she finally stood up and said she wasn't ready to come home, that she needed space to think and feel without being surrounded by apologies, Daniel nodded even though it felt like his heart was being pulled out. Forcing her back would only prove her right. He watched her walk away, the distance growing again, but this time with a fragile hope. She didn't disappear or leave Genoa City. She just needed time. That small mercy was enough to keep him standing. As night came, each of them lay awake, haunted by the same truth. Those 3 words, the slap and the tears, were just the beginning. Healing would demand more than regret, More than love said too late. It would demand change. Whether this broken family could survive that change was the unanswered question echoing through the darkness, setting the stage for consequences none of them were ready for in the chapters ahead. The next chapter unfolds with consequences tightening their grip, because time does not soften wounds when silence fills the gaps, and Lucy's decision to stay away ripples through every corner of their lives, turning ordinary moments into reminders of what was broken, and Daniel wakes each morning with a knot in his chest, staring at his phone before dawn as if willing a message from her to appear, replaying every word he ever said wrong, every moment he chose avoidance over courage, while across town Lucy stays with a friend, pretending she's fine, laughing when expected, but inside carrying a constant ache that never quiets, because no matter how angry she is, no matter how much she tells herself she doesn't care, the truth is she misses her father desperately and that longing feels like weakness she refuses to show, and Tessa, haunted by the memory of Lucy's hand across her face, finds herself flinching at her own reflection, questioning whether she deserves to be part of this family at all because guilt wraps around her like a second skin, whispering that she crossed a line that can never be uncrossed, while Mariah tries to be the glue holding everything together, smiling through tears, reassuring everyone she believes things will work out, even as she feels the ground shifting beneath her feet, terrified that Lucy's pain might permanently change how she sees them. And then the pressure finally breaks when Lucy skips school, not out of rebellion but exhaustion, the weight of pretending becoming too heavy, and Daniel gets the call that sends fear racing through his veins, because for a moment he thinks he's lost her completely, and he rushes out without thinking, his only instinct to find his daughter to make sure she's safe to prove, at least to himself, that he can still protect her, and when he finds her sitting alone in the park, staring at children playing with a distant hollow look, something inside him cracks open, because he realizes this is what his failure created. A child watching others live the innocence she lost too soon, and he sits beside her without speaking, letting the silence stretch until it hurts, because he's finally learning that not every moment needs fixing, some just need presence, and Lucy finally breaks, her voice trembling as she admits she's tired of being angry, tired of feeling like she has to choose between loving him and protecting herself. And Daniel listens, really listens, without interrupting, without defending, letting her words cut him open because he knows he deserves the pain. And he tells her something different this time, not a promise of perfection, not an apology already said 100 times, but a vow to let her be angry, to let her set the pace, to let her hold him accountable even when it hurts. And Lucy doesn't forgive him, not yet, but she leans slightly closer, a small, almost imperceptible movement that feels monumental, because it's the first sign she hasn't completely closed the door. And back at home Tessa makes a decision of her own, choosing to step back, to give Lucy space even though it breaks her heart, because loving a child sometimes means accepting their rejection, and when she tells Mariah, the tears finally come, messy and unstoppable, but there is also relief because doing the right thing, even when it costs you, is the only way forward. And as days pass the tension shifts from explosive to fragile, conversations careful, emotions raw but honest, and Lucy begins to test boundaries, asking hard questions, demanding truth she was once shielded from, forcing Daniel to confront his past in ways he never has before, and each answer he gives chips away at the wall between them, not erasing the damage but proving he is willing to do the work. And the real turning point comes unexpectedly, when Lucy overhears someone blaming Tessa entirely for what happened, dismissing Lucy's pain as collateral damage, and something fierce ignites inside her. Because while she may not be ready to forgive, she refuses to let her hurt be weaponized, and in that moment she understands something complicated and terrifying, that people can hurt you and still care, that love and pain can exist in the same space, and when she confronts Daniel later, telling him she doesn't want to be protected by lies anymore but by truth, no matter how ugly, he nods, knowing this is the cost of earning her trust back. And as Genoa City watches this family quietly unravel and attempt to rebuild, it becomes clear that the slap, the 3 words, and the silence that followed were not the end, but the beginning of a harder, more honest chapter, one where healing won't come with dramatic gestures or instant forgiveness, but with time, accountability, and the courage to sit in discomfort, and whether that will be enough remains uncertain, but for the first time since everything fell apart, there is movement instead of stagnation, fragile steps forward instead of running away, and that fragile momentum carries them into what comes next, where one final truth still waits to surface. One that could either solidify their healing or shatter it beyond repair.